information came direct from Meghan's ex-husband, Trevor Engelson, via an intermediary. And obviously, Trevor Engelson is a very successful TV producer. He now has his own family. He's very happy.
Welcome to Royal Daily Report, your trusted source for the stories they tried to erase. The story you're about to hear was never meant to be released. Not because it's untrue, but because it's uncomfortable. Because it disrupts a narrative that has been carefully protected for years. Because once you hear it, you can't unhear it. This isn't a gentle story. It isn't polished, and it isn't easy. For years, the world has been shown one version of the truth, clean, controlled, and carefully edited. But there is another version, one that never made it past the cutting room floor. And at the center of it is a man who stayed silent long enough for the story to be rewritten without him. Trevor Engelson. And this is what happens when the person who knew the beginning finally steps out of the shadows. When the past refuses to stay buried. When the story that was erased starts pushing its way back into the light. What you're about to hear doesn't just add a footnote to history, it changes everything you thought you knew. ***, subscribe to Royal Daily Report now. Don't miss the secrets they buried. ***, before the royal titles, before the cameras, before the carefully written speeches and polished interviews, Meghan Markle was just a young woman trying to build a life. No palace gates, no headlines, no global attention. And during that time, there was one man who knew her before the story became clean. Trevor Engelson. He wasn't part of the royal world. He wasn't part of the fairy tale. He knew Meghan when her life was still messy, unfinished, and unwatched. Long before anyone cared who she was, he was there close enough to see the parts that never made it into the official version. People often assume the past disappears once fame arrives, but it doesn't. It just gets quieter. According to whispers tied to Trevor's circle, there were things about Meghan's early life that didn't fit the version later presented to the world. Not scandals splashed across tabloids, not Hollywood drama, something deeper, something older, something that had been intentionally removed. This wasn't about ambition or image polishing, it was about a missing chapter. A chapter so carefully erased that most people never even noticed it was gone. And the strange thing is, when you start looking closely, you can see the gap. A blank space in her timeline where nothing lines up. A year that disappears without explanation. A period of her life that fades into silence. That silence didn't happen by accident. ***, stay tuned to Royal Daily Report. We uncover what was erased. ***, to understand where the silence begins. You have to go back to Las Vegas. Not the neon lights, not the crowded casinos, but a small wedding chapel just off the main strip. The kind people walk past without ever noticing. This was the mid-1990s. Meghan was just 18 years old. She wasn't famous. No paparazzi waited outside. No reporters followed her movements. To the world, she was invisible. Inside that chapel stood Meghan Markle and a man named Joe Giuliano. There were no grand vows, no white dress moment meant for photos. Just two young people and two family witnesses. Quiet, private, simple. And then something important happened. They didn't just exchange promises. They signed a marriage certificate. Ink on paper. Legal, binding, real. There were no photos taken to remember it. No announcement made to celebrate it. But that doesn't make it any less official. That chapel didn't host a pretend ceremony. It processed a legal marriage. For a brief moment, Meghan Markle was someone's wife. And then, just as quickly as it happened, the marriage vanished. The marriage didn't end with a divorce. It ended with something far more final, an annulment. For many people, divorce means something once existed and then ended. An annulment means the law steps in and says it never existed at all. No marriage, no record, no past. ***, don't forget to subscribe to Royal Daily Report for shocking revelations. In Nevada, annulments move fast, faster than anywhere else. If both parties agree, the court can erase the marriage in days. And if requested, the entire file can be sealed. Not hidden, not partially visible. Sealed. When records are sealed, they don't show up in searches. They don't appear redacted. They don't leave gaps. They disappear completely. That's exactly what happened here. The annulment was filed. The records were sealed. And suddenly, on paper, the marriage never happened. But sealed files are never meaningless. Courts don't seal things unless there's something inside worth protecting, something sensitive, something that doesn't belong in public view. For someone young, unknown, and not yet famous, an annulment like this was the perfect eraser, a legal reset button, a way to walk out of Las Vegas without carrying the past behind you. From the outside, it looked like nothing had happened, but something had. Because while paperwork can be erased, time cannot. And as Meghan stepped back into her life, the consequences of that quiet weekend didn't disappear with the file. They followed her. They waited, and they surfaced in the one place no legal document could fully erase a missing year. After Las Vegas, something strange happens to Meghan Markle's story. It doesn't move forward. It disappears. Officially, the explanation is neat and harmless. Meghan took a gap year, a break before college, time to travel, explore the world, and find herself before starting at Northwestern University. It sounds reasonable. Lots of young people do it. *** Royal Daily Report, bringing you the truth behind the missing year. ***, but when you look closer, the proof simply isn't there. There are no travel records, no exchange program documents, no photos of her abroad, not a single snapshot standing in front of a landmark, not one verified trace of this supposed journey. For a full year, Meghan Markle leaves no footprints. Instead of airports and postcards, there is silence. According to accounts connected to the Giuliano family, Meghan didn't travel at all. She stayed in one place, quietly, away from attention Chicago. She allegedly lived under the Giuliano family's roof. Far from Hollywood, and even farther from the life she would later build, this missing year isn't just empty, it's sealed tight. And what happens inside it changes everything. Midway through that silent year, the story takes a turn that is difficult to hear and impossible to ignore. According to whispers from those close to the Giuliano household, Meghan gave birth, not in a public hospital under her own name, not surrounded by family photos and congratulations. This birth was quiet, private, carefully kept off the record. There were no announcements, no documents tying the child back to her. A baby girl. And almost immediately, a decision was made. The Giuliano family would raise the child as one of their own. She would be given a new identity, folded into their household, and protected by silence. Meghan would step away, never publicly claiming her. One relative later described it in a single sentence, short, simple, and heavy with meaning. She was Meghan's before she was ours. ***, subscribe now to Royal Daily Report. We expose the hidden daughter. ***, that line says everything. This wasn't a rumor built by strangers. It was described as a chapter that was lived, decided, and then erased. A life that continued forward, but without her name attached to it. To understand the weight of this, imagine being told your story must end so someone else's can begin. Imagine being asked to disappear so a future can stay clean. By late 1995, the arrangement was complete. And then Meghan vanished again. When Meghan reappears, it's as if she has been reborn. She enrolls at Northwestern University. She enters the theater program. She builds friendships. She steps into a life that looks organized, ambitious, and full of promise. This is the Meghan the public eventually meets. But at the same time, something else happens quietly and completely. All contact with the Giuliano family stops. No visits, no phone calls, no check-ins, not a slow drifting apart, a full stop. The Las Vegas marriage is never mentioned. The annulment is treated as though it never existed. And the child, if she existed at all, is erased from the narrative entirely. This wasn't just growing up. It was a reset, a calculated decision to move forward without looking back, to build a future that had no room for questions about the past. From that moment on, Meghan's story becomes smooth. Predictable, easy to tell. High school, college, acting, Hollywood, royalty. No sealed files, no missing years, no quiet births, just a polished timeline that moves in one clean direction. But stories built on silence don't stay silent forever. ***, Royal Daily Report, your window into the erased chapters. ***, because the past doesn't disappear. It waits. And years later, when the public believes the story is complete, the smallest inconsistencies begin to crack the surface. Numbers that don't line up, documents that change, and a timeline that only works if you don't look too closely. That's where the story leads next. For years, Meghan Markle's birth year has been listed as 1981. On paper, it works perfectly. It places her at the right age for high school, college, early acting roles, and eventually a royal wedding. Everything lines up neatly if you don't look too closely. But when people began to look closer, the numbers started to wobble. Archived photos from her time at Northwestern University show Meghan surrounded by classmates who are now alumni. Records place many of those same students graduating high school in the late 1980s, nearly a decade earlier than Meghan's official timeline would suggest. At first, this might sound like a mistake. One error, a mislabeled photo. But it doesn't happen once. It happens again and again. Older alumni programs and event listings quietly list alternative birth years. Not wildly different, but enough to matter. If those dates are closer to the truth, something important changes. Meghan wouldn't have been a teenager during the mid-1990s. She would have been older. Old enough for the Las Vegas marriage to make sense. Old enough for the missing year to align. Old enough for a birth in 1995 to fit without bending reality. Suddenly, the puzzle pieces stop fighting each other. They click. ***, subscribe to Royal Daily Report now and hit the bell icon. Never miss a revelation. And once they do, it becomes harder to dismiss the missing year as a harmless gap and easier to see it as a carefully managed silence. Some people believe official documents are permanent, untouchable, final. But history shows that isn't always true. Years later, when Meghan's son Archie was born in the United Kingdom, his birth certificate was filed like any other. It listed her full legal name first, middle, and title. Then something unusual happened. The document was quietly amended. Her first and middle names were removed. The updated version listed only her royal title. Palace officials explained it away as clerical, a minor adjustment. But insiders close to the royal household admitted something important. They had never seen this done for any other royal mother. That matters because it establishes something critical. If a live, high-profile royal birth certificate can be altered after the fact, under global attention, then what about older documents? High school records, travel logs, court filings from a Las Vegas courthouse in the 1990s. Records don't need to be destroyed to disappear. They only need to be controlled. Sealed files, adjusted dates, quiet amendments. Over time, the story that remains looks clean. Not because nothing happened, but because everything else was removed. And once that possibility exists, the sealed annulment and the missing year stop looking like coincidences. They start looking like a pattern. If Meghan did give birth in 1995, that child wouldn't be a child anymore. She would be nearly 30 years old. And according to quiet recollections from Chicago, there was always someone there. Neighbors remember a young girl present at Giuliano family gatherings. She wasn't introduced, she wasn't explained, she simply existed. One relative described her in a way that still lingers: she's part of the bloodline. But nobody talks about her anymore. For years, that whisper stayed exactly where it was, behind closed doors, untouched by the outside world. Until recently, word surfaced that this same woman, now grown, has quietly had a child of her own. No announcements, no celebration, no public acknowledgement, just another life beginning in silence. If true, the implication is staggering. It would mean Meghan Markle isn't just a mother. She's already a grandmother. A new generation tied by blood, but erased from the story. Here is where everything comes together. The sealed annulment in Las Vegas, the year that vanished without proof. The child raised under another name. The age discrepancies. The altered documents. Individually, each detail could be dismissed. Together, they tell a different kind of story. Not a scandal, not gossip, but a long, careful effort to keep one chapter closed forever. And this is where Trevor Engelson's quiet role matters. He knew Meghan before the Polish, before the reset, before the story was simple. According to whispers tied to his circle, he quietly confirmed what others only sensed, that Meghan's past wasn't just refined. Parts of it were buried. Secrets don't disappear. They wait. They sit inside sealed court files in Las Vegas. They hide in class photos that don't match the timeline. They echo in half-spoken memories that families stop finishing out loud. And sometimes they return through the very thing no legal document can erase: blood. If a daughter raised in silence ever learns the truth of who her mother is, that moment doesn't just rewrite the past, it challenges the future. Because no title, no palace agreement, and no polished biography can keep a truth locked away forever. The real question isn't whether this chapter exists. The real question is, what happens when it finally opens? This was Royal Daily Report, uncovering the chapters they erased from history. Subscribe now and stay informed on every hidden truth that surfaces. Stay connected with Royal Daily Report, where buried secrets refuse to stay silent.